Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Import-Export Hub channel, everyone. Bas Bogdan here, your host for the next 10 minutes or so. Thanks for joining me, by the way. I hope that everybody is doing fine, and without asking you or begging you rather to hit those small vanity buttons, allow me to cover Czech Republic's export dynamics for 2024 with a focus on the top 20 headings that had the largest absolute changes year on year, both positive and negative, while towards the end of the video I will also cover Czech Republic's top 20 headings that had the smallest variability in the 2020-2024 interval, with coefficient of variation as a proxy in measuring this, but more on this in a couple of minutes. So guys, first things first, in what concerns the absolute positive changes, on the first spot we have heading 8471. So we are talking about automatic data processing machines and units, who in 2024 saw an absolute positive change of some $3.12 billion and an impressive $15.2 billion in what concerns the overall exports for 2022. Motor cars is relatively close with an absolute change of $2.6 billion and some $34.6 billion in overall exports, while smartphones, so heading 8517, ends the podium with an absolute positive change of $1.5 billion. And then the list goes on with, I don't know, electronic integrated circuits, for example, parts thereof, with some $475 million increase. Seats, whether or not convertible into beds, is also present with a positive change of some $340 million. Then we see new pneumatic tires, while towards the end of this top 20 list we see, I don't know, cigars and the like. So heading 2402, who saw an absolute year-on-year change of $159 million. Articles of plastic sits on the 19th spot, while ferrous waste and scraps, so heading 7204, ends the list with an absolute change of $118 million and an overall export figure, again for 2024, around $1.1 billion. So, what insights can we squeeze out of this data? Well, firstly, I will focus on the summary chart and look at the two clusters that emerge. So, chapters 85 and 84. The former with 4 headings and the latter with 2 headings respectively. Not very deep in terms of diversification, but pretty important in terms of cumulative exports. Some $40 billion if we consider both. And talking about export value, we see that the auto sector, with just one heading in this top 20 list, is dominating with some $34.6 billion in overall exports, so quite important for the Czech Republic. While for the other headings, again from this top 20 list, it strikes me the diversity of the chapters, all with impressive compound annual growth rates for the last 5 years at least, some with double-digit growth even, which is pretty impressive. Otherwise, the only thing that would worry me, and we can see it here, would be the US tariffs on the European Union and the Czech Republic implicitly, which could affect chapters 84 and 85 quite a lot. But let's wait for the dust to settle, and maybe, just maybe, the tariffs would be lowered or removed altogether. But this, by all means, doesn't translate into stop planning for, I don't know, for expanding or growing foreign markets. But I wouldn't go that far in saying goodbye to the US markets. Anyways, moving now, guys, to the top 20 largest absolute negative changes. On the first spot, we see air conditioning machines. And here, if I'm not mistaken, both Daikin and Panasonic have manufacturing facilities in the Czech Republic. Most probably 2024 was not a good year in what concerns these two manufacturers. On the second spot, we have petroleum oils, so heading to 710 with a contraction of almost $1.3 billion, while electronic accumulators heading 8507 sits on the third spot with a contraction of $349 million. And the list goes on with, I don't know, reaction initiators, for example. Parts and accessories for tractors is also present with a contraction of almost $240 million. What else do we see, guys? We see flat roll products of iron or non-alloy steel, refrigerators, freezers, and the like is next with a contraction of $189 million. While towards the end of this list, we see that solid state non-volatile storage devices sits on the 18th spot. Waste and scrap of precious metal or of metal clad is on the 19th spot, while parts of aircraft and spacecraft of heading 8801 and 8802 ends the list with a contraction of some $116 million. And guys, following the example from the previous sheet, what insights can we extract from this info? Well, firstly, if we look at the summary chart again, the unique chapters are fewer with what chapters 84 and 85 that were hit the most. I will skip chapter 27 because it is a commodity related one, while chapter 87, even though it is present in this top 20 shame list, let's say it has just one heading relating to parts and accessories, so not that worrying, still maintaining for the last 5 years a compound annual growth rate of 4.8%. Otherwise, if I were to choose one heading with a potential downward trend, it will be the heading relating to reaction initiators, reaction accelerators, and catalytic preparations, which should regress to the pre-pandemic values, as the spike between 2020 and 2023 was most likely triggered by the COVID countermeasures like vaccines, for example. But this is just a bird's eye view. I didn't dig deeper, so guys, take this info with a pinch of salt. Now, changing register, let's take a look at the headings that had the smallest variability in this 2020-2024 time frame. And as I said at the beginning of the video, I took the coefficient of variation as a proxy. And basically, this top 20 list, it's sorted according to the coefficient of variation from the smallest to the largest. And as we can see together here, guys, on the first spot, we have heading 8206. So we are talking about sets of 2 or more tools of heading 8202 or 8205 with a coefficient of variation of 0.0244. Footwear with outer soles of rubber, plastic, or leather is on the second spot with a coefficient of variation of 0.0246 and some $514 million worth of exports for 2024. While on the third spot, we have machines and mechanical appliances having an individual function with a coefficient of variation of 0.027 and unimpressive, I might say, $1.57 billion in what concerns the overall exports for 2024, which is the second largest amount in this top 20 list. And then we have, I don't know, friction materials and articles thereof, millstones, grindstones, and the like is also here with a coefficient of variation of 0.0403. We see electromagnets, so heading 8505, while towards the end of the list we see insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, and the like, with a coefficient of variation of 0.0486. Machine tools sits on the 19th spot, while bells, gongs, and the like, non-electric, ends this top 20 list with a coefficient of variation of 0.0493. and some $17 million worth of exports again for 2024. So quickly looking at these top 20 headings, we see that both Chapter 84 and 68 have 3 headings, even though in terms of cumulative exports, the latter has a much smaller figure. Then we see another cluster with Chapter 85 and 83, the former with a stunning $2.1 billion in cumulative exports, while the rest of the chapters are present here with only 1 heading, so quite diversified, even though in terms of depth only 4 chapters have an intra-industry relationship. Now, in terms of compound annual growth rates for the last 5 years, the variation is quite small, as we can see here, with single-digit figures and only 4 headings showing negative changes, meaning that Czech Republic's exports from these particular headings are pretty stable, and I don't think it is wrong to say that these are also part of its competitive advantage. So guys, with this being covered as well, my job here for today is done. I hope I've managed to provide you with some useful information. Thank me by hitting those small vanity buttons below this video. And as always, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.